Hey guys, Shane here from Fugatech 3D printing. So a lot of people really like Cura, and just so happens that the new Cura.5 was just released about 2 days ago. So I decided to put it to the test against my Simplify3D profile and see how the print came out. Let's take a look. Welcome back guys. So as I said, about 2 days ago I received an email that's saying, hey, Cura 2.5 is now out. I will say I am not fully, in tune with the Cura community because I just don't use it. I love Simplify3D. I use it with every single printer that I have, and I now have 5, and all 5 run off of Simplify3D profiles. But Cura is the free option, and a lot of people use it because it's free, and a lot of people can't afford a $150 program, which is Simplify3D. And I am determined, and a lot of you have asked, I am fully determined to work and get Cura working with all of my machines to get nice flawless prints. So what I did, I downloaded Cura 2.5, put it on my laptop, and started playing with the default profile that is now there for the Fugatech FT5. They don't have any other Fugatech printer in there, just the FT5 for now. And a shout out to one of the guys in the Fugatech group. He apparently works with the beta team of Cura, and he was able to get that put in there at the request of many people from Fugatech. So for that, I thank you. Now let's talk a little bit about it. Cura 2.5 is way different than Cura 15. Whatever the end up version was. That's what I was using for a while when troubleshooting like my Delta. I got better prints with Cura than I did with Simplify3D, but now I have my Simplify3D profile tuned properly and I'm getting good prints with that now. Now that being said, the default layout and options that Cura gives you, that Cura 2.5 gives you, is virtually nothing. It is super basic. I mean, I could have my 7-year-old run this program, select a couple things, and print with it. It's that simple. But what they've done is whenever you get to each of the sections, there's a little gear icon. You hit that and then boom, another window comes up with literally some of the settings have like 50 different check boxes. All you have to do is check those boxes and they will then appear on the right side where you would manage everything. Oh, that's also the biggest difference. If you're a Cura 15 person and you're switching to new Cura 2.5 beta, all the settings in Cura 15 were on the left, and now they're on the right. Well, I guess if you're watching left and right. Either way, it was on one side, now it's on the other side. That's a really big difference. So that's the biggest difference. Again, they hide a lot of things from you, so it just gives you the bare essentials that you need. Like, do you want support, yes or no? Like, I want to do more than just yes or no. You have to go in there, hit the gear icon, add all the check marks that you want to play with, and then have at it. Alright, so when I originally filmed this video, which was yesterday, I put a little teaser on the 3D printing group, and it came up as a really big issue that I printed the Simplify3D in black. It was the exact same filament, just a different color. Same settings all around, but quite the heartburn was about printing this in black. So I went ahead and reprinted it in blue, and now we're going to go ahead and go through the settings, or just the differences that I noticed between the Simplify3D version and the Cura 2.5 version. So you're going to see this in the video, but you can just ignore it. It's just going to be in there. I'm not reshooting the entire thing. I'm just going to shoot the differences that I noticed right off the bat between the two prints. Alright, so here we have the two coins, and if you can't tell the difference, I can't really either, especially from this distance. We're going to zoom in here and figure out which one's which, but I want you guys to look right now and tell me which one you think is which. Which one is Cura 2.5 and which one is Simplify3D? I'll give you a second and then I'm going to go ahead and post it. Okay, so you should have made your guess. So if you guess Simplify3D, that would be this one. It was printed with 3.1.1. Over here obviously we have Cura 2.5. Okay, first we're going to take a look at the Cura model and then we'll go ahead to Simplify3D. Alright, so as you can see, the general print itself came out absolutely amazing. There were no real issues anywhere that I could tell on the top. Everything looked just fine. The center area is one area to note for when we get to the Simplify3D model because it's a little bit off on the S3D model. But this one came out really nice. Okay, I don't have a macro lens on this little camera sadly, but if you look right here at the very top layer, you can see how it's a little bit smudged. Other than that, there's just that little smudging on that top layer. So we also keep that in mind and the center part in mind when we look at the Simplify3D model. And there it is, Cura 2.5, I label it. So the biggest thing you're going to notice here is the support. Now when I originally filmed this, I showed how I started taking off the support. So let's just kind of show you when I was trying to do that. Okay, so you see it's really in there. So what it did was it actually prints the support first. It did these wiggly outline, and then it did the center, which was all kind of craziness going around like this, And then it did this cross pattern, which actually took quite a while because it doesn't just like do one section. It does like most of this one, all of this, all of this, all of this, a little bit of this, a little bit of this, a little bit of this, all of this, a little bit. I mean, it's so random. So I think it's very inefficient in that respect. But it's really cool. So let's try and peel this off. I mean, it's on there really, really well. I mean, it's almost like a hard raft is on there. So we're gonna need to get some pliers here and try and pull this stuff off. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to actually. Oh man, this is tough. Whew. That came off. That came off. Most of that came off. This one not so much. There we go. Ouch. But I mean the rest of this outside bit is really, really hard to get off, I have to say. I mean, it's not impossible, but this is going to be time consuming. I mean, with printing, Simplify3D support has always kind of reigned supreme because it literally comes off in 2 seconds. Half of it you can just, like all of this was definitely on Simplify3D, just peel it off and it's gone. Not even a second thought whatsoever. But with this stuff, I mean, it's in it to win it. It's ready for the next apocalypse to come in. I mean, this is not going anywhere. Okay, now this is with the support all off, and as you can tell, there is quite a bit of white markings here of where the filament was. Basically, the support structure was almost completely fused. I would say 75% fused to this part. Was not a fan of that. But due to that, look at these sidewalls. They look great going up here. Now I will say this is my repaired model. Someone hit me up on YouTube in a message and said, hey, the model's really cool, but I think you could make it better by using something like 3D Builder in Windows 10 and doing a simple fix. I said, okay. I did that and it actually came out much better. So you can see the walls are really nearly flawless. There's a few little like string ones right here. So that's interesting, which I hadn't until today. So also on the bottom layers, the bottom layer came out just great. I've got nice separation there. Really nice lines. So again, it came out great, but I was very unhappy with the support on here. And also where most of my PLA filaments have had issue, inside on top of these supports, came out amazing. Now that's going to be two things. One, that's going to be because this is my repaired model, and two, because the supports actually were very good. Again, because they were like basically fused to the model, it basically printed like that was like part of the model, obviously. So it just came out much better, but getting this off was brutal. Now, in order to get rid of these white spots, a very simple and easy thing to do would just be take a heat gun, blow over these real quick, and they would disappear. But I can still feel a little bit rough, so they would take a little bit more action with an X-Acto knife or a file, a little piece of sandpaper, if this was going to be a production part. But this is simply for testing. So that is basically my noticeable differences in this model for Cura 2.5. Now let's look at Simplify3D. Okay, here's the same model, the same filament, printed right after each other now. I printed this one first in Cura, and then I printed the Simplify3D one right after that. Same settings as I could do in Simplify3D. Well, this is my normal PLA, which I had pulled over into Cura, but this is my standard settings that I do. This came out really, really nice, but I'll show you here. It's a little bit off right there compared to the Cura model. So here's Cura. See how that looks really nice there in the center, like that bullseye type of look? See, I'm gonna get that focused. It's really hard to focus on that. But then this one here, it was just off by a little bit. Just a little bit funkiness going on there. And remember I talked about the top layers right here, how that's kind of mushed. If we look here, look how nice that looks and how small it is compared to the great big mushiness of this model. So there's the big mushiness, and here it is much nicer. Much smoother. The Cura one, it feels flat up here. It feels flat. This feels rounded, completely rounded actually. If we look here from the side profile on both of them, you can also tell the difference. This one's a little bit more round where the Cura one looks flatter. This one looks rounder. Flatter, rounder, flatter, rounder. Okay, what else? We look in the corners here, up on top. These all came out great. Again, this is the ones that are on the top of the model, not the ones under support. Sidewalls are good, like in both models. Now underneath, if you look out here in the sides, you can see a little bit of drooping where the printer was printing over the support. Now you can't tell that there was support there. It's gone. That's the beauty about Simplify3D. Their supports are amazing. But some of these still had a little bit of issue with this. I mean, you can see what the angle is, how far that goes up. They still had a little bit of an issue with that around it. So that's one thing to consider. And then inside, these came out great. But I will show you the difference here on how they actually look. So here's the Cura 2.5 one. And all those came out. But see how wide the bottom layer is there? Look how narrow the bottom layer is here. Okay? That is a big difference, which I didn't notice until now actually, looking at these, is that Cura does a much larger bottom area. How it slices the bottom layer and fills that in versus how Simplify3D does it. Again, much rounder. Much nicer in my opinion for that. But there is still that drooping here where Cura did not have that issue. But I took these support off in about 5 to 10 seconds, where this literally took me 10 minutes. Again, looking at bottom layer quality, absolutely fantastic. Again, sidewall qualities were great, but those were the biggest differences that I noticed when printing both of these coins side by side. So looking here again at the two models, you really can't tell which one is which. Let me block my light a little bit. So looking at the two, I personally can't tell the difference between the two of them off of the top layers from a distance. Zooming in we can see that, but from a distance, can't tell at all. Okay, so you saw the differences in print quality, which is pretty much not there. The quality is practically identical. Again, the Cura supports are still inferior to Simplify3D. The print also takes longer with Cura than it does Simplify3D. I believe it's because of the way they do the support. It prints the support like a raft structure and not its own individual pieces, which is why Simplify3D support comes off so easily. And the clearance between the top of the support and where Simplify3D starts and where Cura starts is different. With Cura, it is right on top of it. There is practically no distance whatsoever, so the support basically becomes part of the model. With Simplify3D, that is not the case. It starts a little bit higher up and then it starts to print it. So there might be a little bit of drooping depending on your layer fan settings, but if they're all up to par, you shouldn't really notice too much. Let's go over a few more settings. So both of these were printed at 210 degrees centigrade with 60-degree bed, printed on the Fugatech build plate or build surface, their build tack type deal. The filament again is Excelvan PLA. The model was printed with 2 perimeters, 3 top, 3 bottom, and a 20% infill. I tried to make the Cura profile match what I normally print at with Simplify3D, but all the settings just aren't there. At least I couldn't find them in the about 2 hours that I was playing with it. One of the main differences is when it comes to support, Simplify3D has regular support layers and then dense support layers. Now with dense support layers, that helps prop up anything that it prints, anything that prints on top of that. So instead of it being sparse infill, it becomes very dense, and that way it has a chance to lay nice and flat and catch and make a more seamless model. As far as I could tell, Cura 2.5 still does not have that option. Now I will say that both slicers have a huge selection when it comes to actually infill type. Now I would love to do like a sample print of each of the infill types in Cura because I don't know what they all mean, but I believe I used like the cubic infill for this one, and with Simplify3D the fast honeycomb, which I pretty much use on everything. I don't like rectilinear, I think it takes too long, and I think honeycomb looks cool, so why not? Now when it comes to support, Simplify3D has only one support structure. You say yes I want it, and you can define how it is created, how large, how small, the tolerances of it. You can do a lot of things with it, but it prints the exact same style of support no matter what you do. Now with Cura, that had about 6 or 7 different support structure designs, I'll call them, that you could do. That was very interesting. I've never seen that before, and I would like to do multiple prints with that as well. So the infill, figure out what all the different infill ones mean, and with their support structure, and see what all the different support structures actually look like, so that I can be a little more educated on what each of them do. But that would take a little bit of time. I'll set up a test and I will eventually do that. Now a few of the other settings that I really had to dig into, it's very simple to change your layer fan setting per layer in Simplify3D. With Cura, as I said, it's either fan on or fan not on. And that's not a good thing because you don't want your fan to print on the first layer when you print PLA. You want PLA to print hot and really adhere to that bed as it begins to cool down. So I dug and dug and dug, and finally in Cura I found where there's regular fan speed, maximum fan speed, and the start regular fan speed. I believe that was each of the settings. There's a ton of settings in there, actually way more settings than Simplify3D has, which again makes it a little more complicated in my mind. But regardless, once I found all of those, I was able to say, okay, I can either start at height or at layer with the regular fan speed. So that I set at 60% on my FT5, and then at layer 2 it kicks up to that 60%, and then the maximum fan speed is set to 100. So I let the slicer take over. If it was to do any type of bridge or anything like that, I rely on the slicer to up the speed fan if it needs to. Now, I don't know if Cura does that. I know Simplify3D does, but I'm going to assume that Cura does as well, since everyone likes it so much. I don't know though. Another big thing to remember when you print with Cura, the default settings, you're printing by actual layer size. That's how you're doing your settings. I personally find that super annoying when it comes to shells, layer height, initial layer height. I don't care what it is. Well, I do care what the initial layer height is. I will caveat with that. But other than that, I don't care. I care how many bottom, how many top, and how many perimeters I have. Thankfully, you can go into the settings, disable the layer height size, or the shell thickness would be 0.6, 0.8, or 1.0 millimeters. No, I just want to say my nozzle is 0.4. I'm printing this model at a 0.2 millimeter layer height. I want 4 bottom, 4 top, and 2 perimeters, whatever it is that you want. That makes it so much faster to do the slicing, because if you end up printing with something like the Monoprice Select Mini, that has the magic numbers for the layer heights, and that is the calculation of the steps per rotation of the threaded rod that's in that machine, and there's a whole list of all the different ones that there are. So once you figure that out, you then need to calculate. So get out a calculator and figure out, okay, if I'm doing 3 bottom layers, how much is that? Okay, that is 0.3 blah 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 blah, especially if you're printing at like 0.12. So 3.6 something something something, or 0.326 something something something, whatever it is. That personally to me is super annoying. I hate that with a passion, which is one of the main reasons why I stayed away from Cura. But now with this, it's very easy, and I think that should be the default setting in Cura, not if you want to do it by layer height. Maybe it's just because I hate math, and I did that in school, and I'm now out of school, so there's no reason to do math, and there's no reason to use a calculator in life if you don't have to. It all should be very simple, and if Cura is looking to do the most simplest thing out there, that is what should be enabled, not having you whip out a calculator and figure that out. On the plus sides of Cura, I will say that it was very responsive, which surprised me. I would always get a huge lag on my machines, even though they're using i7s with graphics cards. I would still get a huge lag when changing settings in the old Cura 15, because every time you make a change to the settings, it slices. And I'm like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. But now with the new Cura, it doesn't do that until you tell it to prepare, or until you tell it to actually send it to your SD card, from what I could tell. I have to dig into a little bit more and see, but from what I could tell, I was changing settings left and right and nothing was happening. It was just purring right along. One last kudos to the guy that gave them the idea to put the FT5 into the Cura software, because it actually has the FT5 build plate with the 4 linear rods and the 2 lead screws on each side, and the raised build plate in the middle of it. It looks really, really sweet. That looks really awesome, so good on you guys for doing that. I wonder though, if switching from machine to machine in there, and it has those profiles, if it changes. The issue with that with Simplify3D is once you set that image in the profile, it's that for all your machines now. It doesn't change machine to machine. Unless I have it set up in Simplify3D incorrectly, from what I could tell is every machine that I went to, it would just use that one image. It wouldn't just go and select that different one. So again, I might be doing it wrong, but from what I could tell, it doesn't do that. So if Cura does that, hey, props, that's pretty cool. And that is for nothing other than the cool factor. It has no bearing whatsoever on how it is. Now with the FT5, since it homes to the rear right position, where most 3D printers home to the front left position on a rip wrap Cartesian XY style, will home to the front left position, it still has that homing correct. So when you print with the FT5 on the Cura software, you have to rotate your view 180 degrees and then rotate your models as they import 180 degrees, otherwise they print backwards. I tested that out, and so having home as bottom left corner, which is where, and how you know where home is in the slicers is where it has the X, Y, and Z blue, green, and red axis corner. That is your start and stop. That is your home position. In the delta, it will be dead center. And this actually did print backwards. So again, I tested it out to ensure that was still how it happened. And yes, that is still how the profile was set up. I don't know if you can set the profile to rotate it 180 to begin with, but that'd be something to look into. Again, overall, I just wanted to give you guys a quick little sneak peek on how Cura 2.5 compares to Simplify3D. This isn't really to say that one reigns supreme over the other on such a simple test. This is one test print of a coin that I've printed dozens of times, so I know how it should come out. And I've only been messing with my Cura profile for about 2 to 3 hours in order to create this and make this video. I have a lot more research to do, I have a lot more testing to do, and hopefully I can get it to be absolutely perfect, and I might be able to use that and do more tutorials on using Cura instead of using Simplify3D, or both. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. If you didn't, hit the dislike button. Let me know why down below. Again, I'm really doing this to try and relate with more of the guys that can't afford or don't want to pay for Simplify3D. So I will learn this, I promise you guys, and I hope you're enjoying my first dive really into this. If you want to support the channel, best and easiest way to do it, subscribe down below. Every subscription I get really helps out. If you want to support my channel financially, right down below is a Patreon link. Donate me $1 or more, I greatly appreciate it. I've been requested to do a lot of printer reviews, and the only way I can do that is with people helping out via Patreon. So please, head on over there, donate me $1. I greatly appreciate it. All the donations really do help me, so I thank you guys for helping out so far. Otherwise, you can help me out down below. Lots of affiliate links for all kinds of different websites. Go ahead, do your daily shopping with those. Again, that all comes back here and does help the channel out. So I thank you guys for watching, and until next time, happy printing.